Hello, my name is Jasmine Braden, and today I will be presenting the digital version of the paper that I wrote for my inquiry project titled Is Thug the New N-Word? Addressing Racial Stereotypes in Modern News Media. To begin this presentation, I would like to play a soundbite from NPR's Melissa Block speaking to John McWhorter, Associate Professor of English and Comparative Literature at Columbia University, about the use of the word thug to describe Baltimore rioters. This originally aired on April 30th, 2015, and I thought this would be a great way to introduce the topic for those who may be unfamiliar with how or why this could be seen as a communication ethics issue.
Support for NPR comes from Chipotle. Chipotle is committed to changing fast food norms, but serving real, quality food comes with real challenges. So they're adopting new safety standards designed to exceed industry norms, because they believe higher norms should be the fast food norm.
A certain five-letter word has been used repeatedly over the last few days.
The thugs who only want to incite violence.
Our city of Baltimore to be taken over by thugs.
And thugs who tore up the place.
Thugs, the word chosen by President Obama, Maryland's governor, Baltimore's mayor, and others to describe those who looted and burned stores in Baltimore. And in some cases, that word later retracted with an apology. So why is thug so charged? John McWhorter has been thinking about this. He teaches linguistics at Columbia University and often writes about language and race. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Melissa.
John, I've been looking at the Merriam-Webster definition of thug, and it describes it as a brutal ruffian or assassin. What's the origin of this word?
Well, the word originates in India as a word for roughly that. And because the British ran India for a good long time, the word jumped the rails from Indian languages to English. And that's the reason that we in America have used the word for a very long time. And until rather recently, it did mean what you might call a ruffian. But of course, things have changed.
Well, how have they changed?
Well, the truth is that thug today is a nominally polite way of using the N-word. Many people suspect it, and they are correct. When somebody talks about thugs ruining a place, it is almost impossible today that they are referring to somebody with blonde hair. It is a sly way of saying, there go those black people ruining things again. And so anybody who wonders whether thug is becoming the new N-word doesn't need to. It most certainly is.
Although if you think about it, I mean, in two of the pieces of tape that we played, we heard from an African-American mayor of Baltimore and an African-American president of the United States using that word.
Yep, and that is because, just like the N-word, we have another one of these strangely bifurcated words. Thug, in the black community, for about the past 25 to 30 years, has also meant ruffian, but there is a tinge of affection. A thug in black people's speech is somebody who is a ruffian, but in being a ruffian is displaying a healthy sort of countercultural initiative, displaying a kind of resilience in the face of racism, etc. Of course, nobody puts it that way, but that's the feeling. And so when black people say it, they don't mean what white people mean, and that's why I think Stephanie Rawlings Blake and Barack Obama saying it means something different from the white housewife wherever who says it.
You're saying that African-American, in this case politicians, who use the word thug should be given a pass because they understand it in a different way? I mean, the mayor certainly walked back her use of the word. She didn't want to be associated with it. She said, I spoke out of frustration. They're really misguided young people.
No, because I think that if an African-American woman uses the word thug today, we're not always conscious of all of these overtones in the words that we use, but I think that when she said that, she didn't mean it the same way as her white equivalent would. The word means two things, just like the N-word, and I think all of us are sophisticated enough to wrap our heads around that.
When do you see a turning point in how the word thug is used in our culture?
Well, it seems to have made a major change with the rise in popularity and cultural influence of rap music and the iconography connected with that. I would say that the word thug in the black community had a very different meaning by 1990 than it had in 1980. But that thug image has never been a purely negative model. It's always been part ruffian and part hero.
I'm thinking of Tupac Shakur, who had Thug Life tattooed across his stomach, I think.
Exactly, and Tupac Shakur is thought of as a god by many people. If he was a thug, then clearly if a black person says thugs were messing up the neighborhood, then they mean something other than reprehensible, shall we say, N-word. We have different races in this country, and different races have different ways of using language. Thug ends up straddling different subcultures.
The word thug also, I can think of a number of other applications. I mean, folks on the far right might talk about jackbooted government thugs coming to take over our communities.
That was the original meaning. It changed, though. One of the things that Americans have a whole lot of trouble with, actually, that people in developed societies with written languages have trouble with, is that words never keep their meanings over time. A word is a thing on the move. A word is a process. And that's what's so confusing about the N-word, and that's what's so confusing now about this word thug. Any discussion where we pretend that it only means one thing is just going to lead to dissension and confusion.
There are a lot of people now, John, who are saying, why, and probably listening to this conversation, saying, why are you talking about the meaning of this word thug? That is really the wrong question to be asking and the wrong thing to be focusing on right now.
Well, to tell you the truth, my interest in all of these events is what made these, whatever you want to call them, rise up the way they did. And as far as I'm concerned, I feel that although the rioters were not articulate, they were not performing anything that I would call an exactly coherent action, the fact that this has happened is symptomatic of severe problems in Baltimore and similar cities. And the problem is the relationship between the police and young black men. Now, is it justified to tear up your own neighborhood to protest against it? I would say not. But the fact that it's happened is something that I think we can use as a possible turning point, because I really believe that if a generation of young black men grew up in this country without thinking of the cops as the enemy, that America would really start turning a corner on race. But nevertheless, thug is an interesting word, and to the extent that we need to be able to hear it as more than some antique static dictionary definition, then I think that that's part of the process of healing as well. Black people saying thug is not like white people saying thug.
John McWhorter, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
John McWhorter teaches linguistics, American studies, and music at Columbia University. His latest book is The Language Hoax.
Abstract. The following case study explores scholarly articles and articles found on popular news sites that will help illustrate the communications ethic problem that lies within racial stereotypes that are often portrayed in modern news media. Specifically, the prevalence of the term thug and how it is used when addressing African Americans in the media. The concept of intercultural communication ethics detailed in Communication Ethics Literacy emphasizes the importance of protecting and promoting the good of a particular culture. Intercultural communication calls us to protect and promote a given good, the culture itself. Using the premise of protecting and promoting the good of a particular culture, suggestions can be made on how to better address people of color in modern news media without the use of stereotypes or derogatory terms. Problem description. It seems as though the term thug has been used increasingly and accepted in the media as a way to categorize a group of people, typically African American, who are shown to be exhibiting reckless behavior. The news media sets the agenda for what is considered important. The news media has been used for many years to influence public perception, especially in regard to race. In order to fully understand the notion of how thug has become the new N-word in modern media, one must first look back at the history of race in the media and how racial stereotypes have been used in the news. Many scholars have noted that stereotyping in racial ideology is most significantly reproduced by, or with the help of, the mass media. Through the persistent use of such language, people are able to both consciously and subconsciously draw associations between certain words and ethnic groups. These associations can carry negative connotations much deeper than what they may appear on the surface and can make quite the impact. Findings. Many researchers believe and have shown that media priming of racial stereotypes in one context may have long-lasting effects in other contexts and domains. During Inman's 1990 week-long research, he found that 76% of all local TV stories about Blacks fell into categories of crime or politics. A. Wolf reported that after the unrest in Baltimore following the death of Freddie Gray in 2015, Thug had been uttered around 168 times per day on television alone. According to data from IQ Media, an independent media monitoring service that can track keywords, the word thug was nearly non-existent on mainstream television prior to December 2010. The philosophical first principle of intercultural communications is that culture is a good that shapes individuals and communities, and that this shaping has ethical consequences for persons and communities. Arnett, Fritz, and Bell, 2009, page 155. The sociocultural theory in Littlejohn and Foss, 2011, details the subtheory of agenda setting and framing, which claims that media depictions can affect how people think about the news, help organize the world of experience, and are stunningly successful in telling us what to think about. So how do we protect and promote the good of a culture when the media is shaping our opinions of that culture? According to Arnett, Fritz, and Bell, diversity will not cease, and the defining communicative element of this moment is that our awareness of diversity continues to increase. Learning and intercultural communication ethics is central to a textured view of human life and perhaps to the very existence of the human community. In conclusion, being that this is a relatively recent issue, there is not much data on just how often the term thug is used in modern media, besides what is included in this paper. However, this does not change the implicit fact that coded racism and stereotypes are still an issue and have been for many years in the news media's portrayal of Black people in America. Recommendations. A level of discernment is necessary for Black viewers when watching the news and engaging in modern media to ensure that they are not negatively impacted by the stereotypical versions of themselves depicted in the news media. In addition, journalists and content creators should be more aware of the language they are using and employ unbiased opinions when reporting the news. Diversity training is an essential aspect of most corporations in America and should be a requirement for all if we wish to promote a diverse workforce that is unbiased and tolerant of others. It is necessary for these conversations to take place and to educate others on how the use of coded racism is unacceptable in order for changes to be made. There is no excuse in 2016 for people to remain willfully ignorant to the diversity around them. Implications. The uptick in racial tension that is heavily encouraged by the media is not only terrifying, but also very possible of causing Americans to turn against one another more now than ever. The opportunity for learning to take place is huge. One could learn to be more accepting and aware of diversity and can help educate others. Suggestions. Being that there is so little data concerning the uptick in the use of the term thug, this study recommends that future research be conducted to continue tracking trends showing the use of the term thug in reference to people of color in media, and whether the use increased or decreased after a certain amount of time, and what the extenuating circumstances surrounding the increase or decrease were. Thank you so much for watching.